"Officer, the law doesn't bend to your ego. It breaks badges like yours." Judge Judy's voice, sharp as a prosecutor's closing argument, sliced through the packed courtroom like a blade through silk. The words hung in the air, heavy and absolute. A verdict delivered before the trial had even reached its climax. Under the unforgiving fluorescent lights that made every bead of sweat visible, every nervous twitch magnified, Officer Marcus Davenport stood frozen at the defendant's table. His dark blue NYPD uniform, usually a symbol of authority and respect, suddenly felt like a costume under scrutiny. His hand moved instinctively toward his badge, fingers brushing the cold metal in a gesture that cameras caught from 3 different angles. That single motion, captured in high definition, would be replayed millions of times in the coming days, dissected frame by armchair analysts and legal experts alike. The gallery erupted in gasps, sharp and involuntary, the sound echoing off the wood-paneled walls like thunder in a canyon. Court reporters froze mid-keystroke, their fingers hovering above stenography machines, mouths slightly open in shock. Bailiffs stationed at either side of the courtroom exchanged wide-eyed glances, their usual stoic expressions cracking for just a moment. The cameras, positioned strategically around Judge Judy's courtroom, zoomed in with mechanical precision, their red recording lights blinking like accusatory eyes, documenting every second of what was rapidly becoming not just a hearing, but a public execution of credibility. Behind the glass partition of the control booth, producers leaned forward in their chairs, hands gripping the edges of their consoles, recognizing they were capturing something extraordinary, something that would trend worldwide before the day ended. The prosecutor, a sharp-dressed woman in her 40s with 20 years of courtroom experience, leaned back in her chair, arms crossed over her chest, a knowing smile creeping across her face like sunrise breaking over a battlefield. She had seen this before, this moment when ego collided with expertise, when street authority crashed against judicial power. It never ended well for the ego. But how did it come to this? What series of decisions? What chain of arrogance led a decorated police officer with 15 years of service into Judge Judy Files' courtroom, facing not just a lawsuit but career annihilation? What law did he think he understood better than a woman who had spent 4 decades on the bench, presiding over thousands of cases, dismantling inflated egos with surgical precision? And why was his badge, that small piece of metal that represented his identity, his authority, his entire professional life, about to become nothing more than worthless scrap? Officer Marcus Davenport, 38 years old, 15-year veteran of the New York Police Department, 3 commendations for bravery pinned inside his personnel file, spotless disciplinary record that gleamed like polished armor. He was the kind of cop who believed his years on the street had taught him more than any law book ever could. The kind of officer who thought experience trumped education, who assumed his badge gave him not just authority, but immunity from being wrong. Judge Judy Files, 81 years old, legendary jurist, former Manhattan family court judge, a woman who had seen every lie, every excuse, every manipulation tactic human beings could devise. She had presided over cases involving drug dealers and domestic abusers, white-collar criminals and deadbeat parents. She had heard it all, seen it all, and developed a supernatural ability to detect deception the moment it left someone's lips. Her courtroom wasn't just a place for legal proceedings. It was an arena where truth was extracted like venom from a wound, where accountability was delivered without mercy. This wasn't just a case about a traffic stop gone wrong. This was a collision course between 2 forms of authority. The authority of the street, earned through years of patrol work and confrontation, and the authority of law, earned through decades of study, precedent, and judicial wisdom. Only one would walk away intact. The courtroom felt smaller suddenly, the walls closing in as every spectator in the gallery leaned forward in their seats, sensing what was coming. The air conditioning hummed loudly but did nothing to cool the rising temperature of tension. Someone coughed nervously in the back row. Papers shuffled at the plaintiff's table. The clock on the wall ticked audibly, each second a countdown to devastation. This wasn't going to be a hearing. This was going to be a masterclass in legal destruction. Broadcast live, recorded for eternity, and Officer Marcus Davenport had no idea the trap had already been set. The courtroom was a cathedral of justice, all dark wood paneling and high ceilings that absorbed sound and amplified authority. Judge Judy's bench sat elevated like a throne, positioned so she looked down upon everyone who dared enter her domain. The American flag and New York state flag flanked her position like silent sentinels, bearing witness to the proceedings. Overhead fluorescent lights cast harsh, unforgiving shadows that made every facial expression stark and readable, every bead of sweat visible, every nervous gesture magnified for the cameras that lined the room like sentries. 2 professional cameras on heavy tripods framed the edges of the set, their operators adjusting angles with practiced precision. This wasn't just a courtroom. This was Judge Judy's television courtroom, where justice was dispensed and broadcast to millions, where every word spoken would be immortalized in digital perpetuity, clipped and shared and analyzed across every social media platform within hours. The gallery seats were packed to capacity. On the plaintiff's side, supporters wore matching Justice for Maria t-shirts, their faces set with determination. On the defense side, the seats were noticeably sparse, just two uniformed NYPD officers who sat rigid with arms crossed defensively, their expressions carefully neutral, but their body language screaming solidarity with their fellow officer. The court stenographer sat positioned to the right of the bench, fingers already moving across her machine in anticipation, capturing every word for the official record. The bailiff stood near the courtroom doors, hand resting casually on his belt, eyes tracking Officer Davenport's every movement with the practiced vigilance of someone who had seen defendants snap under pressure before. Maria Rodriguez approached the witness stand. 32 years old, single mother of two, exhaustion written in the lines around her eyes from working double shifts as a nurse at Mount Sinai Hospital. Her hands trembled slightly as she raised her right hand to take the oath, but her voice grew stronger with each word she spoke. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every woman who had ever been pulled over late at night and felt that cold fear creeping up her spine. She described the incident with painful clarity. Pulled over on the Cross Bronx Expressway at 9:47 p.m. on a cold Tuesday night in March. She was driving home from her shift, bone-tired but careful, obeying every traffic law because she couldn't afford a ticket, couldn't afford any complications in her already stretched thin life. Officer Davenport approached her window, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness like an interrogation spotlight. The interaction started normally. License and registration. Standard procedure. She complied immediately, hands visible on the steering wheel. No sudden movements, everything by the book. But then the tone shifted. Officer Davenport's expression changed, his voice took on an edge. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am. I smell marijuana." Maria's voice broke as she recounted her protests. She doesn't smoke, never has. Works in healthcare with mandatory random drug testing that would cost her job if she ever tested positive. But Officer Davenport ignored her, ordered her out more forcefully, his hand moving to his weapon in what she perceived as a threat. For 45 minutes she stood on the highway shoulder while he tore through her car. Cars whizzing past at 70 miles per hour. Headlights illuminating her humiliation. 45 minutes of searching. Found nothing. No drugs, no paraphernalia, no evidence whatsoever. But he didn't apologize. Instead, he handed her a ticket. Obstructing governmental administration. $500 fine for allegedly refusing to comply with his search. A lie that appeared nowhere in his incident report, documented by no evidence except his word against hers. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed as she listened, fingers steepled on the bench. The courtroom recognized that expression. It was the look that preceded devastation. Before we watch Officer Davenport try to defend the indefensible, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. Why? Because we break down moments where authority meets accountability, where badges don't protect you from the truth, and trust me, what happens next is a masterclass in legal destruction. We analyze these power dynamics every single week, courtroom confrontations where egos get shattered and justice gets served cold. Tap that notification bell too, because you won't want to miss a single takedown. Drop a comment below right now and tell me, have you ever dealt with a cop who thought he was above the law? Share your story. Now let's watch a 15-year veteran try to argue law with one of the most experienced judges in American history. This is going to be absolutely brutal. The defense attorney, a public defender clearly uncomfortable with his assignment, rose slowly from his seat, papers clutched in sweating hands. Your Honor, Officer Davenport was acting within departmental guidelines and established probable cause protocols. Judge Judy's hand shot up, cutting him off mid-sentence. I'll determine what's established, counselor. Let's hear directly from your client. Her voice was flat, final, brooking no argument. Officer Marcus Davenport stood, his uniform crisp and perfectly pressed, every crease sharp enough to cut paper. He approached the witness stand with measured steps, the confident stride of a man who had testified in court over 100 times, a man who believed he knew exactly how this would play out. He raised his right hand for the oath, his voice steady and clear. I do. Settling into the witness chair, he adjusted his uniform in a calculated gesture, ensuring his badge caught the overhead lights, a deliberate reminder to everyone in the room of his authority, his position, his power. His posture screamed defiance, shoulders back, chin up, eyes challenging anyone to question his version of events. This was a man who had spent 15 years being believed by default, whose word had sent people to jail, whose reports had been accepted without challenge by judges and juries across New York City. He wasn't worried. He was annoyed at having to be here at all. Officer Davenport, Judge Judy began, her tone conversational but sharp. Walk me through the events of March 15th, the night you stopped Ms. Rodriguez. He launched into his testimony with the rehearsed precision of someone who had given this speech dozens of times. Your Honor, I observed the vehicle traveling erratically on the Cross Bronx Expressway at approximately 21:47 hours. The vehicle was weaving between lanes, speed inconsistent, indicators of possible impairment. I initiated a traffic stop for public safety. Upon approach to the driver's side window, I immediately detected the distinct and unmistakable odor of marijuana emanating from the vehicle interior. His voice was flat, bureaucratic, the tone of official police reports read aloud in countless courtrooms. He continued without prompting. I requested the driver exit the vehicle for officer safety concerns and to conduct a lawful probable cause search. During this interaction, the driver became increasingly combative and uncooperative, refusing to follow direct lawful orders, necessitating a citation for obstruction of governmental administration under New York Penal Law 195.05. He sat back slightly, confident he had delivered an airtight testimony. His fingers drummed lightly on the witness stand armrest, a small tell of nervous energy he didn't realize he was displaying. The cameras caught it. Everything was being caught. Judge Judy leaned forward, elbows on the bench, eyes locked on him like a sniper acquiring a target. Officer, I've reviewed your dashboard camera footage. Tell me, where exactly on that video do I see this combative and uncooperative behavior you just described? A flicker of uncertainty crossed Officer Davenport's face, gone in a microsecond but captured in high definition by 3 different camera angles. He cleared his throat. Your Honor, the footage doesn't capture everything that occurred. There were verbal exchanges that happened off camera, outside the vehicle, that the dashboard cam's audio didn't fully pick up. Judge Judy's eyebrow arched slowly, a movement that sent a ripple of recognition through the gallery. Everyone who had ever watched her show knew that expression. It was the beginning of the end. Judge Judy's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the courtroom seemed to drop 10 degrees. The audio is continuous, though, isn't it, officer? We can hear everything said during that stop, correct? Her voice was surgical, precise, cutting away excuses layer by layer. Officer Davenport shifted in his seat, the first visible sign of discomfort. Yes, Your Honor, the audio is continuous, but there are nuances in tone and body language that don't translate to nuances. Judge Judy interrupted, her voice sharp as a whip crack. Officer, you wrote in your incident report that Ms. Rodriguez was belligerent and confrontational. Those aren't nuances. Those are specific behavioral descriptions. Show me where on that footage she displays belligerence. The courtroom held its collective breath. Reporters' pens hovered above notepads, frozen mid-word. The cameras zoomed in on Officer Davenport's face, capturing the redness creeping up his neck, the tightening of his jaw, the way his hands gripped the armrests just a fraction tighter. Your Honor, he said, his voice taking on an edge. With all due respect, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know what probable cause looks like. I know what marijuana smells like. I don't need a video to tell me what I experienced in real time on that highway. The gallery gasped, a collective intake of breath that echoed off the walls. Reporters underlined the phrase furiously. I don't need a video to tell me. Officer Davenport's fellow officers in the back row stiffened, recognizing the mistake their colleague had just made. His defense attorney closed his eyes briefly, a silent prayer or perhaps acceptance of defeat. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, studying him like a specimen under glass. You don't need video evidence? That's an interesting position for a law enforcement officer to take. Tell me, Officer Davenport, are you familiar with the Fourth Amendment? Of course I am, Your Honor. His voice carried unmistakable condescension now, his ego refusing to let him back down even as the ground beneath him crumbled. Then explain to me how you established probable cause to search Ms. Rodriguez's vehicle for 45 minutes based solely on an alleged smell that magically appeared 8 minutes into the traffic stop. Judge Judy signaled to the bailiff. Play the footage, full audio, from the beginning. The courtroom monitors flickered to life, displaying the dashboard camera view in crystal clarity. The timestamp read 21:47, exactly as Officer Davenport had stated. The video showed his patrol car pulling behind Maria's vehicle, lights flashing. Officer Davenport approached the driver's side window, flashlight in hand. His voice on the audio, clear and professional. Good evening, ma'am. License and registration, please. Maria's voice equally clear, no slurring, no hesitation. Yes, officer. Here you go. Is there a problem? You were weaving between lanes back there. Have you been drinking tonight? No, sir, I don't drink. I just got off a 12-hour shift at the hospital. The exchange continued, polite and routine. Officer Davenport returned to his vehicle, ran her license through the system. 8 minutes passed. Her record came back clean. No warrants, no violations, nothing. Then his voice again. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle. I smell marijuana. Judge Judy paused the video, the frozen frame showing Officer Davenport standing beside Maria's car door. 8 minutes, officer. You claimed you smelled marijuana immediately upon approach in your written report. But the video shows 8 minutes elapsed before you mentioned it. 8 minutes during which her license came back completely clean. Which version is accurate? Your report or your camera? Officer Davenport's face flushed deep red. Your Honor, I may have. The timing in my report might have been what? Inaccurate? False? Let's use the correct word, officer. Was your report a lie? Objection. The defense attorney shot to his feet. Your Honor is making inflammatory accusations? Judge Judy's gaze shifted to him, cold and absolute. Overruled. I'm asking your client to explain a direct contradiction between his sworn written report and video evidence. Sit down, counselor. The attorney sat, defeated before he'd finished standing. Judge Judy pulled out Officer Davenport's incident report, holding it up like evidence at a crime scene. Your report states Ms. Rodriguez exhibited bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, and erratic behavior consistent with substance impairment. I've watched this footage 3 times, officer. Her eyes are clear. Her speech is articulate. She complies with every single instruction you give. Where are these signs of impairment you documented? Officer Davenport's hands trembled slightly. Your Honor, those observations aren't always visible on camera, but they exist in reality, don't they? Or did you fabricate them to justify a search you had no legal basis to conduct? The courtroom erupted in murmurs, whispers spreading like wildfire through the gallery. Cameras captured everything. Officer Davenport's pale face, his shaking hands, the sweat now visible on his forehead under the lights. Judge Judy reached beside her bench and lifted a thick manila folder, the pages inside bulging with documents. She dropped it on the bench with a heavy thud that echoed through the silent courtroom like a gavel strike. Officer Davenport, let's talk about your history. This folder contains 6 complaints filed against you in the past 18 months. 6 separate incidents, all remarkably similar to what happened to Ms. Rodriguez. Officer Davenport's face drained of color. His lawyer half rose from his seat, then thought better of it and sank back down. The camera zoomed in, capturing the moment his confidence cracked like ice under pressure. Judge Judy opened the folder, her fingers moving through the pages with practiced efficiency. January 2023. Keisha Williams, 28 years old, pulled over on the FDR Drive at 10:15 p.m. You claimed probable cause based on marijuana smell. Searched her vehicle for 30 minutes. Found nothing. Issued ticket for obstruction. Complaint dismissed by Internal Affairs. She looked up, eyes locked on him. Sound familiar? Officer Davenport's jaw clenched. Your Honor, I was cleared in that case. I'm not finished, Judge Judy cut him off, her voice sharp as broken glass. March 2023. Jasmine Chen, 34 years old, pulled over on the Cross Bronx Expressway at 9:30 p.m. Marijuana smell. 40-minute search. Nothing found. Obstruction ticket. Complaint dismissed. She flipped another page. May 2023, Destiny Johnson. July 2023, Patricia Morales. September 2023, Angela Davis. November 2023, Maria Rodriguez. Who's sitting right there? She gestured toward Maria, who sat with tears streaming down her face, vindication and pain mixing in equal measure. The gallery was completely silent except for the scratch of the stenographer's keys and the faint hum of camera equipment. 6 women, Officer Davenport, all women of color, all driving alone at night. All subjected to warrantless searches based on your alleged detection of marijuana. All cleared when nothing was found. All issued bogus obstruction tickets when they dared to question your authority. 6 complaints, all dismissed by NYPD Internal Affairs without serious investigation. Judge Judy's voice grew colder with each word. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. That's predatory policing. Officer Davenport's face twisted with anger, his composure finally shattering. He leaned forward in the witness stand, voice rising. Your Honor, those complaints were baseless. Every single one was investigated and I was exonerated. I'm a decorated officer with 15 years of service, 3 commendations for bravery, a spotless record. Spotless? Judge Judy's eyebrow arched dangerously. You call 6 dismissed complaints spotless? Let me tell you what I call it, officer. I call it a department protecting its own instead of protecting the public. I call it systemic failure. Officer Davenport stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The bailiff's hand moved toward his belt, body tensing. Your Honor, with all due respect, you're sitting up there in your courtroom making judgments about situations you've never been in. You've never walked a beat, never pulled over a vehicle at night not knowing if the person inside has a gun, never had to make split-second decisions that could save your life or end it. The courtroom exploded in gasps and murmurs. Reporters' fingers flew across their devices, typing frantically. The defense attorney buried his face in his hands. Judge Judy remained perfectly still, her expression carved from stone, letting Officer Davenport's words hang in the air like a noose. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. "Officer Davenport, sit down." "Your Honor, I'm trying to explain." "Sit down." Each word was a command, not a request. Officer Davenport hesitated, ego warring with survival instinct, then slowly lowered himself back into the chair. Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes boring into him. "You're right about one thing, officer. I've never walked a beat, but I have spent 40 years interpreting the law, applying the law, and holding people accountable when they break the law. And right now you're in my courtroom, arguing with me about the law. That's not courage, officer. That's stupidity masquerading as authority." The words landed like hammer blows. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Cameras captured Officer Davenport's face crumbling, his ego collapsing under the weight of judicial power he had grossly underestimated. If you're watching Officer Davenport's career implode in real time and loving every second of this accountability, smash that subscribe button right now. We deliver these justice breakdowns weekly, where authority figures learn the hard way that badges don't equal immunity. Hit that like button too and drop a comment telling me, what should happen to cops who abuse their power like this? Your engagement helps us bring more stories like this to light. Now let's watch Judge Judy deliver the final legal destruction that ends this officer's career forever. Judge Judy pulled out a law book, its pages marked with colored tabs. "Officer, since you want to debate law with me, let's educate you." Rodriguez v. United States, 2015. Supreme Court ruled that prolonging a traffic stop beyond the time necessary to handle the initial reason violates the Fourth Amendment. You stopped Ms. Rodriguez for alleged erratic driving, which your own camera disproves. Then you held her 45 minutes searching for drugs you never found. That's not law enforcement, officer. That's harassment with a badge. Officer Davenport's mouth opened, but no words came. Judge Judy continued, relentless. Terry v. Ohio established that reasonable suspicion must be based on specific articulable facts, not hunches or profiles. You have no facts, officer. Just your word against 6 women who all tell the same story. Judge Judy's gavel hand raised, poised for the killing blow. "Officer Marcus Davenport, I find your testimony not credible. Your pattern of behavior constitutes civil rights violations under Title 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. I'm awarding Ms. Rodriguez $25,000 in damages and ordering a formal referral to the NYPD Commissioner and the Department of Justice for Criminal Investigation, officer." Davenport's badge was suspended pending investigation. Within 3 months he was terminated. Criminal charges followed. 6 women finally received justice. Judge Judy's words echoed. Badges don't grant immunity from the law. What did you think? Was justice served? Comment below. Subscribe for more accountability breakdowns. Hit that bell. Share this with someone who needs to see authority challenged. Lead with integrity, not ego.